can say that. A lot of college football going on. Let's talk about. I'll just jump right into it because I missed a lot. Um, I did post a little bit. I should have posted a little bit more to make up for the lack of what I was doing, or the lack of posting on YouTube, the long form videos. Okay, so let's start with the obvious. We'll go backtrack to when I last put out an episode, which was before pre-week 5. It was pre-week 5, I'm pretty sure. I think I last put out an episode like before week 4 or something like that. I didn't put out an episode before that. Oh, it was before week 4. Yeah. So I put out an episode after like week 3. Um, I didn't talk about Nebraska and Illinois. I did post about that. I posted it in the first half, and I was like, and then once the game ended, I was like, oh, this is a stupid thing. That was a stupid thing to post. But Dylan Royalo was playing really good in that game, and so was Illinois' quarterback. Um, so, and then also USC and Michigan, and how much of that has played a role into what is going on in the Big Ten. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Also, a lot of Big 12 drama. There's been a lot of Big 12 drama the past couple weeks. Utah beating Oklahoma State on the road, and then BYU destroying Kansas State at home, and why I think they might be the team to beat with another team. There's two teams in the Big 12 that I'll be talking about today, and we're also going to be doing my CFP predictions week 7. I wanted to do it last week, couldn't get to it. Obviously, I'm grateful that I didn't get to it last week because I would have put some. I wouldn't. I would have. There would be some differences on my stuff. And then the week following after that, week 5, we had a classic weekend. We had Virginia Tech and Miami. Miami comes back, and then the whole controversy about the refs. Still, that has carried over to last week against Miami against Cal. Georgia, Alabama. That was the game of the week. I watched the first half, and I was like, okay, this game's over. And then I didn't watch the second half. I did watch the two final sequences of the game. Beautiful game. Illinois, Penn State, Arizona. How about Arizona going on the road, beating Utah at home? This is the first time Utah's lost at home since the COVID year, and those home games don't really count. So even before then, Utah never loses at home. Arizona breaks that streak. I think it was one of the longer streaks in college football as home games. Then Kentucky beats Ole Miss, and why I did not, why I did expect this, and we're gonna get into this in a little bit more, and we're gonna talk about another team that has blown up. And then we have Oklahoma State. Kansas State bounces back against Oklahoma State and further adds to the drama of the Big 12. Let's see what else, and that's about it from that week. Louisville lost to Notre Dame. That was kind of the week for Louisville that they needed to show that they were a true contender in the ACC. Not that they lost to SMU. Not really. They're not really in that contender zone anymore in the ACC. I don't believe. Week 6. Then we have this after the cinematic week that we had of college football, where we had Georgia and Alabama with an absolute classic of a battle. And then disaster strikes. Alabama loses Vanderbilt. And it wasn't even like it was like Alabama just lost the game. Vanderbilt won that game offensively. They curb stomped, like they were passing all over the yard against Alabama. They dominated them all phases of the game. And Alabama was just playing catch up. And it kind of showed the one true weakness of Alabama. You almost wonder if that Georgia game was so telling for Vanderbilt that it was a perfect storm. Alabama comes from an emotional win against Georgia, and Vanderbilt sees what was on tape of that Alabama secondary that was getting torn up by Carson Beck in that second half. You almost wonder if that was kind of the big thing there in that game. How about Arkansas at home beating Tennessee, and Nico Iamaleava. That's a big game for the SEC too, because then you were kind of at that point, the SEC was hoping for Georgia or Tennessee to win, and then Tennessee to kind of take that second or that second spot in the SEC. Because right now, in my rankings of the SEC, it's Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, or Georgia, Tennessee. It would have been, if Tennessee wins, it would have been Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia. Now that doesn't go that way. Um, then we have Miami narrowly escapes Cal. They came back from 25 at Cal. Big game for Miami. And then we have Missouri. How about A&M? And the thing is they had not been ranked at all this season by me. They had been ranked in the preseason poll and all that stuff. Never ranked them. Why? Because I wanted to see them prove it, and Mike Elko prove it. A&M does it here. They did it this weekend, beating Missouri by 31. And it goes to show how utterly dumb I was, and saying that, like, I was thinking Missouri was going to be a team, an SEC team that was going to be in the playoff. I should not have thought that because Missouri had success last year that was going to carry over. Their defense was not as good. All they really had was Brady Cook and Luther Burden, and it really showed against A&M. And then Michigan in the national championship rematch, Washington downs Michigan, and that's a big win for Washington. If Washington didn't lose to Rutgers, which they shouldn't have, they should have beat them. Washington's looking like a team in the Big Ten that could be contending. But they do have, I think they have one loss in the Big Ten. I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, because they lost the Apple Cup. And then, yeah. So they have one loss in the Big Ten. They could have been contending, a serious contender right now, looking at it. And then USC loses at Minnesota. So there were, I think there were five or six top 25 teams that got upset this weekend. Crazy week. Crazy weekend. Clemson proves what I've already been thinking this against Florida State. I have Clemson number 7 in my preseason top 25. I posted this. Oh, I have them 6th. Excuse me. Yeah, we'll go over this. Texas. Okay, the first 4. Oregon has proven a lot over the past 4 weeks, 3 weeks. Their 3 games, just beating up on opponents that they should be beating up on. Oregon State, they went to Oregon State in the Civil War rivalry game. Boom, beat them. Then they played at UCLA. Boom, beat them. Then they played Michigan State on Friday, destroyed them. And so it really went to show how much more focused Oregon is and how much more attention to detail they have. Georgia I have at 4. I almost regret this ranking. I may take this back because I want to put Penn State at 4, but I also don't want to overrank Penn State. This is one of those things. This season is much different because there's so many teams that are just losing week after week in the top 10 that you're kind of like, oh my gosh, you don't know where to rank these teams because you don't know how they measure up. Even 6 weeks into the college football season, we have no idea. Like, even the AP poll is like, what the heck is going on? Like, we have no idea how to measure these teams. I don't want to put Georgia ahead of Bama. Why? Because Bama beat Georgia. But I can't put Bama ahead of Georgia when Bama just lost to Vanderbilt. One of the worst teams. Oh, God. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anyway, I didn't want to put Georgia ahead of Bama, but Georgia also didn't lose to Vanderbilt. But Georgia did lose to Bama. So it's kind of a tough scenario to weed out. Tennessee then goes behind Bama after losing to Arkansas. I almost wanted to put LSU ahead of Bama and Tennessee, but they haven't really proven as much to be ranked in the top 10. But then again, there's so many teams that are so flawed. Here's another thing. Texas A&M at 12. I wanted to put Texas A&M higher, but I need to see more from them. And I think these next 2 weeks where they play, or they have a bye week this week, excuse me. Then when they play Mississippi State, then LSU. If they win those 2 games, they're in the top 10 easy, and they may be top 7. They've looked really impressive. They looked really impressive against Missouri. And then I've got Iowa State, BYU. This is where the Big 12 comes in. These three, just right three: Iowa State, BYU, Kansas State. And then I got Illinois, Nebraska. I really kind of like to put things head to head, except for this Georgia Alabama thing. It's the only thing that I did change. But everything else, if you beat your team, if you beat a team in the top 25, you will be ranked ahead unless your loss was so bad that you have to be put behind the team that you just beat. So these three, that, and then Illinois still being ahead of Nebraska. Boise State at 18, they've been really impressive, just blowing teams out. Ashton Jeanty, he's my number 1 for Heisman right now, number 1. Missouri 19. It's a good, solid ranking for Missouri. I like it. Michigan, I almost want to put Michigan and USC out of the top 25 because of how bad they've played. 22. I don't know why Notre Dame. So we're putting Notre Dame, a team that lost to NIU, ahead of all of these other teams. I don't think Notre Dame is better than Nebraska. I don't think they're better than Missouri. I don't think they're better than Michigan or USC. And we'll see that game, USC and Notre Dame. I don't think they're better than USC. And all these teams ahead. I don't think Notre Dame's better than any of them. I don't think they deserve the ranking of 11th in the country. But because of so many upsets that they kind of have to be put there because we don't know who else is going to go there. Utah at 23, I did not like what I saw against Arizona. They couldn't move the ball. And as long as Cam Rising is injured, they will not be ranked higher than this. Indiana, I wanted to put higher up here. This is a great team. I think it's Greg Schiano is their head coach. Oh, Kirk Cinetti. Yep, Kirk Cinetti. I'm thinking of Greg Schiano back at Rutgers. Kirk Cinetti. He's building something in Indiana, and it's really showing these past couple weeks. And they have a big test at home against Nebraska in a couple weeks. We'll see how that goes. And then Oklahoma is the fringe team. I almost want to unrank them as well and put SMU in. SMU is my 26th team, and then Pitt is my 27th. If SMU keeps winning, then they'll be put in there ahead of Oklahoma. Oklahoma has to win this weekend against Texas. If they don't, it's almost like good riddance in the SEC. So that's my top 25 here. And let's go over some teams right now. Okay, so I'm going to talk about kind of how the season has gone and how my perception has changed on some of these teams, um, and how like just 6 weeks can really change an outlook on the season. So let's get into it. We'll start with the top or my echelon for contenders for a national championship. Teams that I think that will contend for a national championship that really are serious contenders. So um, I've got really, how many do I want to say? I want to say five teams in my teams in contention. I've got at the first spot is going to be Texas. Texas has looked like the best team all season. I did not agree with the AP poll putting Alabama at 1. I had Alabama at 2 after the win against Georgia. Obviously, then they lost. So I've had Texas at number 1 since the Michigan game. Um, uh, and then also I've got Texas there, and then I got Ohio State in that mix. I've got Oregon. Now Oregon's a tricky team. They've looked a lot better since the week 2 matchup against Boise State. They've been handling their business against Oregon State, UCLA, and Michigan State. Now they play Ohio State at home this week. That will be a huge game. A lot of implications there for the Big Ten. And you'll see my pick on that game. I'll record it a little bit later on this week. And then, so Oregon's third, the third team in this mix. I do still have Georgia. Um, I still have Georgia in this list as a championship contender, and here's why: is because Kirby Smart is one of the best coaches in college football. He's proven. The only thing he has not proven is he cannot beat Alabama consistently. He has an Alabama problem. Um, so that's the issue for Georgia right there and Kirby Smart. The fifth team I'm going to slot in there is Alabama. Now, I know Alabama's eighth in my rankings, but that's because they lost to Vanderbilt. But I do believe they'll bounce back. I think they lose one more game, but that they still are going to be in the championship mix, and we'll see in my playoff bracket for that. So that's my championship like contenders there, my five. I've got like a little mid-tier kind of thing underneath where it's a bunch of teams. It's like teams like Penn State, Clemson, Miami, Tennessee. Tennessee, I wanted them to be in the championship contender. I was thinking they were going to be there, but no, not this year, or not yet. After that loss to Arkansas, albeit it was on the road, hostile environment, and that is a hard place to play at Arkansas. As Sark, his first year, he coached at Texas, but that's kind of the idea uh, for my championship contenders. All right, we're going to talk about my playoff, or actually, we're going to get into Heisman because I have not talked about this. I have not talked about this. I haven't had a chance to talk about it. My top four, at least the guys who are, I believe, are going to New York. The guys who've proven so far that they've done enough to be slotted in New York. All right, I've got first guy. My if I had a vote, I would vote for Ashton Jeanty to be the first to be my first place vote. That'd be my first place. Ashton Jeanty is putting up numbers like we have not seen. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, he's in a group of five conference. He's not in the Power Four. He's, just not that. He isn't playing against great competition. To that, I say, come on. So then, why aren't half running backs that are just as great as him doing what he did? Like Quinshon Judkins. Now, to be fair for Ohio State, they have two running back monster. Hold on. But let's look at the season. Okay, so he's first in yards, rushing yards. Let's go to the stat. Ginty. He's first in yards. He's not even first in attempts. He's also first in average yards per carry from for eligible players in that field. He's not first. He's he averages 10 yards per carry, which is insane. Um, and he has the most touch out of any running back in the country, actually by any skill position player. Or is that combined into passing as well? No, it's not. It's not. Cam Ward leads the country. But he has the most yards, scrimmage yards in the country, and it's not close. He also has the most from scrimmage touchdowns at 16, and he is aiming for Barry Sanders' record for touchdowns and rushing yards. I believe the rushing record is 2,800, which is insane, but he is on pace for that. Um, in college. Okay, so Barry Sanders in 1988 at Oklahoma State, he rushed for 2,628 yards, 37 touchdown, and he had 37 touchdowns. While adding also two special team scores, so he had 39 overall touchdowns. If we go to a calculator app, I'll calculate this right now actually. Okay, so or not Barry Sanders, but Ashton Jeanty He has he has played, what is it, 5 games now? I believe it's 5 games. Hold on. Excuse me. Games so far. Let's go to his stats. So here we go. So he's got 1, 0, 3, 1. So 5 games divided by 5. He averages 206 yards per game. If you multiply that by, let's say 13, because I think it counts the bowl game as well for Oklahoma State. He is right there. He's right there. 2,680 rushing yards. Again, Barry Sanders rushed for 2,628 rush yards. And for Ashton Jeanty, 16 rushing touchdowns divided by 5. We're going to get 3.2 rushing touchdowns per game, which is nuts, by the way. He had 3 rushing touchdowns against Utah State last game. That's insane. And he didn't play the second half. It's insane. So then 13. 41.6. I'm telling you right now. So this is what Jeanty has to do to win the Heisman Trophy. I'm going on a soapbox here about Jeanty, but this is what Jeanty has to do to win the Heisman Trophy. Because this is what I'm saying, in 13 games he has to do this. Why? Because the Heisman Trophy is, I think he's concluded voting after the conference championship game. I could be 100% wrong, but that's about where. If he is there or is on pace for it, and if he breaks those 2 records, Heisman Trophy is his. There's no debate over it. Travis Hunter's had a great year, but so is Cam Ward, so is Jalen Milroe so far. But that is it right there. If he can get to the magic number of 38 rushing touchdowns and then 2,629, like 2,650 yards. Those are the magic numbers for Ashton Jeanty to take the hardware. And I don't think that's out of the question. He's been balling out, by the way. 206 yards per game. And then he averages 3 rushing touchdowns per game. If he stays on the pace for the rushing touchdowns, if he continues to average 3 rushing touchdowns per game, he's smashing that record. He's getting to 40, 42, 41 rushing touchdowns in the season. Okay. So that's number 1 is Ashton Jeanty. There's a good debate. You can have a debate about this one, about the first 2, because it's really a 2-man race. Now we have number 2. I'm going to have Travis Hunter. He's played elite on both sides of the ball. There were some, I read over Instagram comments a lot, and there's a lot of Colorado haters. Let's be honest. Colorado is proving a lot of people wrong right now. I'm going to talk about that in a second because I want to talk about the Big 12 and how crazy it is. But if we go over to, and there's advanced analytics talking about how Travis Hunter is top 10 as a cornerback. I'm pretty sure it's more like top 5. I'd have to get calculate those or get those stats finalized. But he had a streak for 4 games of 100 yards in each game, which is nuts from a player that is not originally a wide receiver. He has 46 catches for 561 yards receiving. He has 6 receiving touchdowns, which is a receiving touchdown, averaging a receiving touchdown over each game. Like he's averaging more than 1 receiving touchdown per game. There's not much you can really say on, like, there's no counting statistics for cornerbacks. It sucks, but that's just how it is. But he's gonna break. He's gonna break the stats, or he's gonna exceed the stats that he had last season as a as or he's going to break the stats he had last year. Excuse me, sorry. Um, he has currently 2 interceptions, one forced fumble, which by the way that was a clutch for. You could say that was kind of Travis Hunter's like Heisman moment to get into New York. He's by the way these two guys, Ashton Genty and Travis Hunter, barring injury and like serious injury, these two guys are guaranteed in New York. I can guarantee that one. I can guarantee he's in New York. They're going to be in New York. Travis Hunter's been great on both sides. There's no real dispute, and he's kind of the reason why Colorado's in the spot they are and why they're super successful this year compared to last season. A big, huge reason for them being in the mix for the Big 12 right now. All right. 3 is kind of like this is where it's the quarterback necessity position for the Heisman Trophy, and it's going to be Cam Ward. Obviously, a lot of people will have Cam Ward first. I do not want this year to be where we take away a Heisman Trophy from a skill position player. I think it's Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty. It's almost like you should just give them both, like a co-Heisman Trophy, but they've been that great over these quarterbacks. But Cam Ward, he's been the guy who has really brought Miami out of these games, like these close games. Remember last year, Miami lost majority of their games in one possession last season, and a lot of them were just like game managing issues. Cam Ward has can't come in and fix those issues. If it not be for Cam Ward's heroics, they lose by probably over 30 against Cal. They also probably lose by double digits against Virginia Tech. Um, and they've looked extremely questionable defensively for Miami, and he's covering that up right now. And Miami needs to. I'm pretty sure they're on a bye week this week, so they got to figure out that stuff. But Cam Ward is third. He has 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He leads the country. I believe he leads the country also in passing. Yeah, he leads the country in passing yards. Leads the country in passing touchdowns. Um, he's a great quarterback for Miami, and really the reason why Miami is in the position that they are right now in the ACC. All right. Then fourth, I kind of have a little bit of a dispute against this. I want to say Jalen Milroe, even though they lost, but I think even with that loss, what happened last week is so influential for a Heisman Trophy that like Jaden Daniels he had 3 losses last year at LSU, and a lot of them weren't even his fault. If we're going to be honest, the Alabama defense got carved up by Vanderbilt, so you can say partly it wasn't Jalen Milroe's fault, although Jalen Milroe did have throw interceptions, so you can really say that was on both sides of the ball. But Jalen Milroe has played as one of the best quarterbacks in the country, something that we weren't expecting really from him. He had 1 interception and 1 touchdown, but he was still efficient. Had 310 yards passing because they were behind. They had to pass it a lot. But yeah, Jalen Milroe is going to be my fourth guy, even though they lost to Vanderbilt. He's still going to be in New York by this point and by these measures, and heading into Week 7. So that's it. That's my Heisman Trophy list. My top 4. That's really all that matters is the guys that go to New York. So let's see. Now we're going to get into some conference stuff. Who I think are the true contenders and what's going on in a lot of these conferences. All right, we're going to start with the ACC. We're going to kind of go alphabetically, I guess. Yeah, we can go alphabetically. So Clemson and Miami, it's really a two-head. SMU is asserting themselves into this race, but SMU also, this will be interesting because SMU doesn't play Miami, neither does it play Clemson. So what could happen here, and this is a very interesting take, is like Clemson and Miami don't play each other. And SMU doesn't play Clemson or Miami either. What could happen here is Clemson, Miami, and SMU could all go undefeated, and this is why the ACC, it's so big. I don't know why the ACC doesn't have an 8-game or a 9-game schedule for conference play, especially since with the conference realignment, I don't know why they didn't change the conference rules to make it for, to make it 9 games in conference. That kind of alleviates the issue that is looking to be had. If SMU keeps winning, and if Clemson and Miami keep winning like I think they will, because the schedule is horrible for all three of those teams. Really, it's really easy, especially the way they've been playing. Um, I think this is a three-headed race, more like a two-headed race of Clemson and Miami, and then SMU could be that dark horse that could maybe screw some things up, like in a tiebreaker where it's some weird tiebreaker and they leave out Miami or Clemson in the ACC title game, and guess what? SMU goes. Like that would be kind of insane for the country to see. Like, and it would really call on the ACC to be like, hey, what the heck is this? It's kind of insane. So Clemson, I'm really high on Clemson. There's a reason why I ranked them ahead of Miami, because the past 3 weeks, even with that loss to Georgia, this team for Clemson is very similar to 2022 Oregon when Dan Lanning first arrived at Oregon and they got throttled by Georgia. I think it was like 49-0. It's this Clemson team's a lot like that, where you just kind of give them a mulligan first week because of what happened um, against Georgia. They're very similar teams where they've handled their business everywhere else. Um, and let's look at the update. I believe Clemson will win the ACC. A little spoiler to my playoff, but that's where I think they are. Is they handled their business at Florida State. It's still hard to go on the road. That was their first true road game. They handled their business against App State. We thought they were going to be a great group of NC State, which at the time people were saying they were, or I wasn't saying that. They've never been in my top 25. I don't know why they were in the top 25 in the first place, but they handled NC State, and then they also handled Stanford. So they are looking very well. The only tough game on their schedule, or three tough games, is Virginia, Louisville, and Pitt. And Virginia and Louisville are at home. my mic back on. All right. Okay, so now we'll get into Miami. Miami's been skidding by, so I think that's kind of why I think Clemson's going to win the ACC and why they should be the favorite to win the ACC moving forward. Okay, now we're going to get into the Big 12 conference. Okay, so this is a very interesting conference now. We knew that there was going to be chaos in the Big 12, but we didn't know there was going to be this much. Honestly, a lot of the teams that we thought were going to be the top tier upper echelon teams are kind of sitting at the middle or the bottom. And I'm going to be talking about 4 teams right now. And I think I already touched on them earlier, but Kansas State, Utah, Arizona, and Oklahoma State were kind of the 4 teams that we were looking at. We're like, okay, these are the teams that could potentially win the Big 12. And Kansas, which, by the way, Kansas has not played well at all. They have not beaten an FBS team. This is looking like mid-2010s Kansas from from like the 2010s, when how bad they were then. So I think this is interesting. Now the 3-headed monster or the 4-headed monster. I'm gonna include Colorado in here. The 4 teams that really have, I believe, a shot to be the top team in the Big 12 that have kind of asserted themselves in the conversation. No one really thought about them in this light. Texas Tech, BYU, and Iowa State, and then Colorado. Those 4 teams have asserted themselves into the upper echelon of the Big 12 just by record. Now, Utah, are they still a very probably the best team in the conference? Maybe. Same with Kansas State, Avery Johnson, though they got throttled by BYU. Then again, that was a lot of mistake-filled football, and BYU capitalized it as they should have. But if we look at how the Big 12 conference is, we look at how performance has gone, I'm going to lean on the team that has been the 2 teams that have been consistent all season, and that's BYU and Iowa State. Iowa State has been consistent all year. They've been the kind of the team that no one's really talked about. Both of these teams, no one has talked about. So Iowa State comes back against Iowa. I think it was like 19 to 3 or something like that. They came roaring back and beat Iowa on the road at Kinnick Stadium. Is really hard to do. Even though Iowa has been kind of meh, their quarterback, I think it's McNamara. It is McNamara. Has been kind of but then again, we all said, well, if Iowa just had a quarterback and an offense, then Iowa would be a good team. I think Iowa's like 3-2. I haven't. Hold on. Yeah, they're 3-2. They just lost to Ohio State by a lot. So Iowa's a pretty solid team. So Iowa State, and then they've handled their business ever since. They just had a bye week. They play at West Virginia this week. I think this will be a very, very detailed week for Iowa State to show if they can be one of the upper echelon teams in the conference. Because guess who was also undefeated in conference play? West Virginia. Even though West Virginia has 2 losses on their record, West Virginia is not out of the Big 12 race. And BYU, they destroyed Kansas State at home, and then they played Baylor. That was I watched that whole game. BYU was up 31-14 at half. They started out on a 28-7. Started 28-7, and then they let it was a 21-6 run by Baylor to end the game, and BYU had to have heroics to end up pulling through and escaping. Again, it's on the road, and it really showed BYU's like kind of resiliency because of how hot it is at Baylor. I'm pretty sure it was like I know how hot it is in Baylor, in Waco, Texas. It's extremely hot, humid, muggy, blah, it's disgusting. And they showed resiliency. I'm still worried. They need consistent play. That's what I'm going to be looking at for BYU this weekend against Arizona. They have to play consistent, or else they're going to get beat because Baylor's offense was kind of like it isn't as good. Their defense is great, but they have to play good because if they don't play consistent and play steady, complementary football against Arizona, Arizona's going to beat you up. I mean, that's kind of how they beat Utah. Is Utah just wasn't playing complementary football offensively. And so when you get a couple turnovers or you play reckless or you don't play on schedule offensively, you're going to lose. And I think that's what you got to look out for if you're BYU playing against Arizona this week. So that's kind of my four teams that have kind of emerged in the Big 12. Awesome. Like these teams have really showed out. Big Ten, I think this is a two-man race, even though Penn State is ranked number 5 in mine. This weekend against USC, they have to go on the road, albeit USC is unranked. They are ranked in mine. I did say I kind of them along with Michigan, but they're still ranked. I think this week will show us really how good USC is. But if Penn State goes in and handles their business on the road at LA against USC, I think that will really show us how good Penn State is. That's I think Penn State's opportunity to really show if they're championship contenders, especially since the week after they have Ohio State at home. So that'll for sure be a big game. So I've in my Big Ten echelon, I've got Ohio State and Oregon at the top, and then in the middle, I've got Penn State, um, Nebraska, Indiana, and Illinois. Those are kind of my middle tier teams, mid tier teams. Actually, hold on. Let me scratch that. Mid tier is, or like the tier below Ohio State and Oregon is Penn State. That's it. And then below that, I've got Indiana, um, Nebraska, and Illinois. There you go. Sorry. Okay. That's kind of a quick one. Because it kind of figures itself out. SEC has turned into a very interesting conference after this weekend with upsets and all of that. It's turned very competitive now. Besides Auburn, they're 0-3, and same with Mississippi State, they're 0-2. Anyway, we've got Texas A&M. I'm just gonna say this right now. I'm high on them. I'm high on them right now. After that win against Missouri, I'm a believer. I I was kind of a believer after Notre Dame. I was not a believer in their offense. I was a believer in their defense. Even though Notre Dame's offense is anemic passing wise and throwing the football, I do believe they're still a good team, and especially since what Connor Whiteman showed, I think he was like 17 for 22 for 274 yards. No touchdowns though, but still their ground game was insane. Moss going for I want to say 150 yards rushing. I could be 100% wrong. It's off the top of my head. So, and the SEC, my top echelon is Texas, Georgia, Texas and Georgia. Below that is going to be A&M, Alabama, Tennessee. Then below that, I've got LSU, Ole Miss, and then below that, I've got Missouri, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. So that's kind of how my tier in the SEC is. And now we're going to get into my playoff picture. Okay. Ugh. So previous to the season, prior to the season, I made some picks on the college football playoff and what I believed was going to happen. And let me say, there's a lot of changes I made. So I had Ohio State at 1. Ohio State and Texas are 1 and 2. I do not regret those decisions. Utah at 3, I kind of don't regret that because it still can very well happen. 4, Florida State, obviously. I regret this. I don't know why I picked Florida State. I think it was just because, look, they were talented. Mike Norvell, I thought was a great coach, and I thought he could get these guys to be disciplined for week 1 and week 2. I got made a fool on this one. I should have put Miami at 4 or Clemson at 4 or whatever. So that's kind of where I regret a lot of this. And then Notre Dame at 7. I'm not high on Notre Dame at all. At all. Okay. So, and Missouri also, I regret that one. Okay. So now my college football predictions, CFP predictions, week 7. I've got Texas at number 1, Ohio State at 2. I flipped these, and here's why: is because I don't. I said at the beginning of the season there won't be any more undefeated regular season teams. I think Texas is that team that's going to go undefeated. The one team that's going to go undefeated in the regular season. I think Ohio State's going to slip up against Oregon this weekend. Yep. I just made the prediction. I just made the prediction, but I have to because I have to explain why I have Ohio State too. But also because the SEC is so deep this season that whoever comes out of that mess is going to be ranked number 1. The committee is going to have to, and the Big 12 is kind of a bunch of teams that are kind of frail. They're not very good, so I think that's how that's going to work out. So Texas at 1, Ohio State at 2, and then I've got Clemson at 3. I've changed my perception on Clemson, completely actually. I believe Clemson's a great team. Ever since that Georgia game, I think that Clemson's very good, and they've looked very good. Cade Klubnik has looked much more improved since the Georgia game. You can say that he hasn't played up against great defenses, but he's also handling his business and making it look easy. So, and Dabo Swinney's got this team believing. I said prior to the season, I said if it's okay, he doesn't use the transfer portal, he just won't be winning any more championships. I take all of that back. I meant championships as an ACC championships, by the way. I said that's what I said, and I regret that. I regret that. That was a bad statement to make. 4, I've got BYU winning the conference. This may be biased, but I'm going to pick them. They've just looked like the best team in the conference so far. Yeah, that or Iowa State. That's kind of who I have, and then Kansas State is also on the outside of this one. So that's kind of my conference champions right here. All right, 5. I've got Oregon. So how I feel this is going to play out is I've got Oregon beating Ohio State this weekend, and then in the conference championship, I've got Oregon losing to Ohio State. I don't think Penn State's going to get to the conference championship. I thought they had a chance. I thought they could do it. I'm not sure they can, especially since I think Ohio State probably will beat Penn State, so that tiebreaker will play itself out. Okay, 6. I got Tennessee. I think Tennessee's a great team, um, and I think they'll beat Alabama at home. And here's that. That's why is because they're going to be at home at Knoxville and Rocky Top. Um, so I think that's going to be a tough game or a tough time for Alabama to win. Is when they have to go to Rocky Top, especially what they showed against Vanderbilt. Is Nico, I think, will finally unload what he is potentially like his potential against that Alabama secondary because that was glaring against Georgia and Vanderbilt for Alabama. All right, 7. I got Alabama. I think Alabama will bounce back this weekend. I think they play this weekend. No, they do play this weekend. They play South Carolina. I believe they blow them out. They'll be focused. So I've got that. And I've got Georgia at 8. The reason why this plays out is if you win head to head against a team, you will get in there. You will be ahead of them. And I thought this was going to play itself out with LSU as well, but we'll see. Then at 9, I've got Penn State. I think Penn State is going to be that third Big Ten team to get in the playoff. They've looked really good so far this season. Andy Koldenicki has changed the offense for Penn State. They've looked really promising this season, comparatively to last season when they were very pedestrian on offense, and I've said that before. A&M at 10. Ooh, baby. I'm jumping on the Aggie train. I'm jumping on it. Yep, I've got them in the playoff. And here's why. And it is all because of schedule. If Texas A&M had the schedule Oklahoma did, I wouldn't put them. I would probably put them close to my first four out. But because of the schedule they have, okay, listen to this. They have at Mississippi State, which is at Mississippi State is the second worst team in the SEC by record, and then they got LSU at home. We know what happens. A&M plays LSU at home. They beat them. They beat them. So I think A&M has the edge against LSU in this game. Um, remember that season where LSU was looking towards being the first ever team to go to the playoff? That's two losses if they won the SEC title game. Well, the game before the SEC title game, Texas A&M beat them. That was the team with Jaden Daniels and Brian Kelly's first year as head coach. So that is why I kind of have LSU or Texas A&M beating LSU, and then they've got out at South Carolina. This is what great scheduling is. So they have at South Carolina on the road, tough place to play, um, and then you have this little uh, this game right here, New Mexico State. What a terrible or what an amazingly scheduled game towards the end of the season. You might as well call it a bye week because guess what? They play South Carolina on November 2nd. Then they have a bye week after, and then they play New Mexico State. So they are going to be fresh for when they go up against Auburn, who, by the way, is the worst team in the SEC right now. And then they play Texas at home. So their schedule, if they get past LSU and South Carolina, ooh, baby. A lot of people are going to be jumping on the A&M hype train. I'm already on it right now. I'm saying A&M is going. They will have a shot to go to the SEC title game. They might be able to get in the SEC title game, and here's why: because I do believe Georgia loses again to Texas. I do believe Alabama loses again to Tennessee, and Tennessee may lose another game there against Georgia. So we may be looking at three two-loss SEC teams that get in the that can't get in the play or the conference championship game if A&M wins out all the way into the Texas game. So this would mean if A&M wins out until Texas and they lose to Texas, they're still in the SEC title game. They have to play Texas again. I would say that's very favorable for A&M. That gives them a shot. I'm on A&M's hype train. I bet you a couple weeks from now, I will be regretting this. I probably will, but I'm on it. I think they have a bye week this week as well. Yeah, because they've played 6 straight games. So they have a bye week this week, and then they play Mississippi State. Like, this is a perfect storm for A&M. I'm saying this right now. Ooh, College Station's about to be buzzing. Well, they probably already are, but I'm saying this right now. A&M's going to be there. They'll be at 10th, though. That's where I'm going to have them as like a safe pick right there. 11th, I've got Miami. I do think I was really back and forth on Miami because I want to say they're going to stub their toe against a team coming up, but I think they only play Pitt and Louisville. I want to say. Let me look at their schedule because I did look at it earlier. Yeah, they play Louisville on the road. They have a bye week this week, and then they play at Louisville. So and that's about it. Like Florida State, they also play, but that team's not very good. So now when it comes to my first four out, I'm gonna have Iowa. I think Iowa State loses in the Big 12 championship. Yeah, I've got BYU and Iowa State in the Big 12 championship. Big 12 championship that no one is gonna expect, that no one expects. Just by the way. Um, got Nebraska in the as my other team in the first four out, and then I've got K State and Ole Miss. So that's my first four out. So that's kind of that's my playoff prediction. This is gonna be an interesting. next couple of weeks to really show, and it will really weed out all these teams. The only team I'm worried about here that I put in, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't do that, is Miami. They have played such incredibly close games. Like, I don't know. Okay, another team I wanted to get to. I did not talk about this team specifically for this reason, is because I did not want to get on the hype train and talk about Colorado and bash them or get like say like amazing things about them and then just like look like a fool. Like only a fool talks about a team or talks about something that will make them look like a fool. Like it is very how do you say this? Polarizing. Colorado is very polarizing. You can either be proven extremely right or you can be proven extremely wrong. A lot of people have been proven extremely right here. Colorado, the line of scrimmage has changed against UCF. And here's why I'll say this. So there was an analyst that talked about this and how Colorado changed their schematics from playing 10 personnel, which is one running back, zero tight ends, to 11 personnel, which is one running back or one halfback, one tight end. So that kind of personnel. This changes your run game and how much flexibility you have in the run game. So I would say Colorado's best quality is their wide receivers, and rightfully so. But also, it gives your wide receivers much more room for uh, plays to be off and get more rest, so you can cycle them in. Because then you only have to really run 3 receivers, one tight end, one running back. That's it when you run 11. And it's much easier to run the football because you have an extra guy in the box, not in the box, but in the formation of the offensive line, to help run the football. They ended up doing that against UCF, and they ran it all over them. Excuse me, they didn't run all over them. Blah, 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 blah. But it made it much easier in pass protection. That's what I'm saying. Excuse me. It made it a lot easier for pass protection for Shadur Sanders, which we all know he's had issues with. And honestly, it's by formation. I don't exactly know the percentages, but I know in that game they ran 80% 11 personnel, and that was a change by Pat Shurmur, former Giants head coach, and now offensive coordinator for Colorado. And this is for the people who say Deion Sanders doesn't coach. He's just a guy that is kind of the media guy for Colorado. He's just the head coach to be the face. But no, he realized that there was an issue, and same with Pat Shurmur, and they changed it. Their offensive, the guys on the offensive for schematics changed it or changed their philosophy and changed their schematics for the game. It's great to watch. Another thing, this UCF team that they played, I'm just going to say this, they had the best rushing attack in the country by yards. And Colorado shut that down. I'm going to say that they did. I'm surprised that that happened. I thought UCF was going to win, and I almost wanted to pick them to cover. Obviously, I was a fool for even thinking that. Rushing, UCF only had 177 yards rushing, which may seem like a lot when you think about it, but also when you take into account that they were averaging 350 yards per game rushing to 177, that's a big disparity, and that's taking away something that a team loves to do, which is run the football. And UCF, once Colorado took the lead, they never looked back, which makes UCF get away from what they like to do, which is run the football. Yeah, Colorado took that away. Their defensive line played really well against UCF. And what did we say? Well, what did a lot of people say about Colorado? All they need is an offensive line to protect Shadur and a defensive line to help at the line of scrimmage and stop the run. Well, what happened here? They limited the best rushing attack by nearly 150 yards of their average. That's impressive. That's impressive. This is an impressive win for Colorado. And they won by 27. So I think all the Colorado haters out there, this one makes you look like a fool. I did not want to comment on Colorado at all for this reason, because I knew if I said something, they'd prove me wrong. Because this is what I wanted to say about Colorado after the Nebraska game. And I was going to say this about them and Florida State. There is a big drastic difference in what you can do with the transfer portal. So either the transfer portal is a home run and you smash it out of the park and you're uber successful, or it comes crashing and burning down. Why? Because of lack of continuity or continuity. God, I don't know. And veteran leadership on your team. Colorado had the most transfers in and transfers out at 45 to 43. Transfers out 45, transfers in 43. So it really kind of showed like Colorado was just clean housing. And most of that was on the defensive side, running backs, like none of it was really skill positions, quarterback, wide receiver, corners, safeties. But at the defense and offensive line, they got rid of their depth and they got more depth. Now, if you're Colorado, this is an impressive win. I want to say this also. It's going to keep going on about the transfer portal. Like I said, it can either go really well for you or it can come crashing and burning down. Guess what's going on at Florida State? It's coming crashing and burning down. And I should have seen this coming because Florida State uses the transfer portal a lot. If you don't use it the right way, and I'm going to say this right now, this is why I kind of think I take back, I regret my comments about the transfer portal, about Clemson. I regret it. It was premature, naive, and stupid that I said this. Is that you don't need to use the transfer portal heavily to win championships. You know what you need? Veteran talent. Clemson has that. They have a lot of veteran talent. Cade Klubnik is a veteran player. Phil Maffa is a veteran player for Clemson. They have a veteran defense. Their defense is good. Even though Georgia hung 34 on them and they lost by, they played really well defensively up until Georgia kind of let it go because they weren't playing complementary football and the offense wasn't helping the defense out. So that's where I see things. And Florida State, they've got to figure it out because what's happening is they're 1-5 and they may look like they're going to go to 1-7 because they have Miami coming up, they have Duke coming up. I'd have to go through their schedule. I haven't really looked at Florida State ever since they lost that. Lost last week, or they lost against Boston College. Hold on. So here we go. Okay, so yeah, they road at Duke. They go on the road at Miami. They play North Carolina at home. On the road at Notre Dame. Play Charleston Southern, and they play Florida. They could very well be. What do I want to say? 3-9. They could have a 3-win team. They're already out of bowl contention because they're going to lose to Miami or Notre Dame. It is bad. It's bad. Anyway, this has been the show. I'll talk more about this later in the week. And my predictions for this weekend because it's a huge weekend of college football. But yeah, see y'all.